Okay, well, welcome everyone to our skills workshop, Think Like a Boss. We'll get into it. I wish I could see all of you, and I wish we could all be in the same room as originally planned, but the world has its way of, delivering as it requires. So here we are. We'll try to make the best of this as possible, and I hope that you'll have questions at the end. So I'm not going to speak a long time about myself, but I just wanted to introduce you so that you have some context from where these slides are coming from. Maisha, the next slide, please. I have Maisha I'm sitting in Geneva, Switzerland, and I have Maisha in our London office helping me with the presentation so that I can focus on the substance. So my name is Rena Scott. I am actually a lawyer. I am not working on site. I am not an architect. I'm not an engineer. I've been practicing since 2005 and exclusively in the area of construction since 2007. I've spent my entire career in law firms in both the US and in Switzerland. And I started out as an associate, then moved on to what's called the counsel role, and now I'm a partner. And I focus on dispute resolution and delivery assistance on large scale construction projects. Next slide, please. So the reason why I think this is going to be a great skills workshop is because I am uniquely positioned as an outsider in the construction field. I get to see how all of the players interact to get a project delivered, from the owners to the contractors, subcontractors, architects, engineers, the PMCMs. And I've seen where things work well. I've seen where they fall apart. I've seen how they can be better. And I've particularly seen how women, how we are in this field, whether it's the same as men, different from men, where we can maybe exercise our skill set a little bit more strongly. So today, I'm going to go through my tips on how we can put our best foot forward when we're working in whatever field we choose. Right now, we're talking about construction, but I think these can apply whether you stay in the construction industry or you move out to other sectors. These observations primarily come from my own observations, sitting in board meetings, sitting in site meetings, sitting in dispute resolution meetings, and particularly my observations on how we can best deliver our own role on any projects. In short, this is going to be a self-reflection 25, 30 minutes, okay? And I hope that the takeaway will be that you can always reassess how you're doing at any given time to make sure that you are giving the best you can give to your company and that you're getting what you deserve to get out of it. So let's go on, let's start. We're going to be going through a series of polling questions first before I get into the meat of it. So here's our first polling question. To what extent do you feel that you understand your role within your company? I'll give you all a little bit of time to answer, and then we'll look at the results. Now, Maisha, will I see the results on my end?
I'm gonna share these now.
Okay, great. Can everyone see this?
I think so, yeah.
Great. Okay, so everyone can see. We as a group, and I believe there's how many of us? We have 44 folks in the room. So as a group, we understand, okay, we're 56%, we understand moderately how we fit into our company structure, but we could use some guidance. Okay, that's a nice percentage. And about 31% of us understand perfectly well. 13% of us feel that we need significant additional guidance. Okay, I think we can move on. I think has everyone submitted? Okay, let's go. to the next slide. So my first three sets of observations or tips are understanding your role, reading the relevant contracts, and using a responsibility matrix. So where do these come from? So these are obviously my outside counsel perspective and examining individual roles as they relate to a company's risk profile. Whatever role you have in your company, you need to definitely understand how your role impacts the company's risk. Even if you're a non-lawyer, the company is always, every day, focusing about risks, profit, delivering projects on time, quality, and not losing too much money, right? And so each of us, we need to figure out how we fit into that calculation. So that's where the understanding your role, point one, it should be fairly clear. One way to do that, which I've realized that a lot of people don't do, even though we think it should be obvious, is read the relevant contract. I think it's fair to say that every single project has a contract that you should be able to get your hands on, and you should be able to read to figure out where you fit into the role. But you would be surprised that there are lots of people working in different areas of construction who simply haven't read the contract. They don't quite know how their role fits in the entire delivery process. So it's vitally important to know how your role fits into the overall scheme of the project. If you haven't read the contract, at least get your hands on a responsibility matrix, which from what I've seen for projects that have them, they seem to go more smoothly. For projects that don't, I encourage all of my clients to have one. And so the responsibility matrices obviously set out the roles of each entity. Architects, what is their role? What are their responsibilities? What risks are they looking after? The contractor, the PMCMs, the owner. And when these documents are spelled out to the detail that's required, you can help your company manage their risks, and you know where you fit in the company as a whole. I think we can move on. So second poll, how much time do you spend per month honing your skills and checking in on areas you need to develop? Maisha, you can show the results whenever.
Everyone hasn't finished. But
okay, okay. And while you're answering, you might want a little bit more background on what I mean by honing your skills. So not just spending time at work, I would call this spending that extra time to work on areas that you want to be stronger in.
Please can I ask everyone to use the actual poll to submit your answers and not in the chat box?
Okay, I was wondering, am I supposed to be? Yeah, yes, let's use our polling. Someone is asking, where is the poll?
It should be live on screen. I can see 23 people have submitted their votes. Mm-hmm. If you've joined by phone, you might not be able to see this.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. I'll end it for now just to share the answers.
Okay, let's share what we have. Okay, so from the answers that we have so far, sorry, I'm just reading the note. I'm not on my phone, but there is no poll option available. We'll get into this. I'm just going to read the polling results that we have so far. It looks like from the answers we have, about 57% of us spend less than 20 hours per month honing our skills. About 35%, spend more than 20 hours, and about 9% more than 40. And there's no one who's put more than 80. That's interesting. Well, let's hear about why it's important to work on honing our skills. Next slide, please. Some of you may heard of Malcolm Gladwell. He's a Canadian, primarily a journalist, author, who's written many, many books about random, interesting topics. And one of his books, Outliers, he didn't come up with the theory of 10,000 hours, but he goes into it in some detail about how experts in their field have something in common, and it's usually the 10,000 hours rule, which is they have practiced their skill for approximately 10,000 hours. This is the measure of greatness. Now, a lot of people have challenged Gladwell's view, but I'm going to run with it. You can read into it if you like. But I've taken the 10,000 hours of deliberate practice rule, and I've tried to figure out, well, what does that mean over a 10-year period? Because I've also heard that you become an expert after working in your field for approximately 10 years. So that's about 1,000 hours of dedicated time a year. Based on, a month standard, it's about 83 hours per month. And it's about 20 extra hours of time on your skill per week. And so if we think about our day and we think about the desire to become an expert in our field, we should kind of think about where can we carve out a few more extra hours in our day to start honing our skills, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in our work days and think, okay, just because we go into the office and we spend our, 8 to 12 hours, however many hours you spend, that's enough. Well, imagine how much unproductive time we spend at work where we're not actually going beyond to become the expert. Let's move on, Maisha. So here are some of my tips on moving towards expertise. Generally, it's owning your field, and this is more of the 10,000 hours approach. Spending that extra time, whether it's on the weekend, morning, evening hours, listening to podcasts while you're running, however you find the time, focusing on your expertise, whatever that is. The other two tips are more of how you present yourself and how you convince others that you're an expert, because we're all always striving to get there, but part of it is just faking it, right? So the express yourself clearly is making sure that when you write, for example, whether you're a lawyers focus on writing all day, but other professions don't. But I think that everyone can spend more time, no matter if you're a contractor, architect, engineer, planner, everyone can focus a little bit on their written presentation, because it goes miles to showing people, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. When you can present something clearly on paper that's logical, that is spell checked, that looks good, that gives an air of this person really knows what they're doing. The last point, make it easy, it follows on from having clear writing. It's supporting whatever you're writing with documentation, with the evidence. I call it the evidence because I'm a lawyer, but you might call it, the minutes of meeting, or the schedule, or the procurement plan. Every time there's a proposition, make it easy for the person reading it and say, okay, I'm going to put a footnote And this is the document I was referring to in my report. So these little bits following up on your field with extra time outside the office, maybe. Writing with very high level attention to detail and making it easy for the readers. These few tips I find separate those who just want to clock in and those who actually want to give a better impression of themselves inside their companies. Let's move on. Next polling question. Let's try this again. I hope that I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions on the polling. Let me read it first. Do you feel that you adequately promote yourself in your company? Are folks responding? Is it working? Okay.
We do have a question in the chat box, and that's what if it's your company?
Yes, I'll answer that. Maisha, can you hold that question for me for a little bit and just remind me? Okay. Okay, the results are in. So 15% of us make sure that my company knows of my expertise and my achievements for the company. I am 41%, I'm moderately successful at informing my company of my expertise and my achievements for the company. And 33%, I miss opportunities. That's a big number, so this is important. And 11%, I do not promote myself. I think I'm going to respond to this question first that we had in the question box, which is, what if it's your company? I think it's an excellent question because from the first, I started my first traineeship, I think, in the year 2002. And I remember one of the first lessons I learned was, you are your company, right? And whoever you are working for is your client. So, for example, even though I was a trainee in a law firm working for the company, my actual client was the associate I was working for, or the partner I was working for, or it wasn't the client of the firm. I was trying to impress the actual people who were going to eventually hire me. So my answer to you is, what if it's your company? It's, who are your clients? So are you promoting yourself sufficiently to your own clients? So for example, we'll get into this in a bit, but I'm just going to give one thought here. When you have a success, when your company has a success, do you publicize that to your former clients to make sure that they've seen, wow, they're doing a good job in their field. Let me think about them in the future. Let's move on, and we'll get back to more questions at the end. So the next set of tips build on from the previous set, and they're learn to present, communicate and plan for success, and understand your company's risks. Here's that word again, risks. So the previous tips focused on the writing. This one now focuses on the presenting, okay? Because we're not all going to be writing reports. Some of our work is just going to be in a PowerPoint or in a brochure, but it is so important in this fast-paced society, and this is something that I, as a lawyer, am learning every day. No one wants to read a 10-page memo. People want information, they want it fast, and it has to look good. So we all have to work on our presentation skills, whether we are a planner to, the C-suite. Communicate and plan for success. We're all busy. If we have deadlines that we know we're going to miss, we need to communicate that because people are busy and they have things to do. We want to be rising stars, so we want to be dependable. So always make sure your timelines have room, have cushions for delay, disruption. I'm using construction terms, okay? Make sure you have float and make sure you are informing your team about your progress and your plans. And once again, understand your company's risks. How do you do that beyond knowing your role in the company and using a responsibility matrix? For me, as an outsider looking in on this field, it's knowing the claims process, because that's how issues come to me. And they come to me a lot, and it's because someone didn't understand how to avoid a claim. And all of this goes back to understanding the contract, understanding risks, and understanding how to avoid having to actually look at the claims provisions in the contract. But to do that, you need to read them first. So I think we need to rush through so we can have question time. This is the last polling question. To what extent do you seek out and get the feedback you need to contribute successfully to your company? And I'm answering these too, so everyone try to participate. I see your response, Natalie, or Natalia, I'm sorry. Okay, the results. So 14% of us make sure to seek out feedback from our companies. 43% of us are moderately successful at seeking out feedback. So that puts over 50% of us do a good job at this. That's good. But 39% of us miss opportunities and 4% of us don't do it at all. Okay, my observations here. When I was an associate, it was my job to get feedback and to seek it out. And I think I've always been good, maybe because lawyers in general are generally nervous and want to always know that they're doing a good job. So every time I would submit an assignment, I'd say, was it okay? What could I have done better? Just to make sure that it's right. Nowadays, I'm seeing oftentimes when an assignment comes to me, there's no follow-up from the associate. There's no, here's the assignment. Could I have done better? And I'm thinking to myself, yes, you could have done better. And I wish you would ask me. Instead, they often wait till the review when it's not the best time to get the feedback because the review is in the record. It is better to get the feedback early so that you can correct course need be, instead of having something go in your record that could have been avoided. Maybe the record's going to be good, but more often than not, the feedback in a review sometimes comes as a surprise. I think oftentimes, let's go to the next slide. Oftentimes, either we forget to get feedback. I'm going to go back. Oh, I saw that. I saw a good question. We forget to get feedback because we're busy, or our companies aren't good at giving feedback. So there's a number of reasons why we might not be getting the feedback we need. I'm just going to read this question out loud so that we can remember to talk about it. If you own the company, by seeking feedback, do you also mean from your clients? Yes, I do. I will go back to that in a second. Let's go to the next slide. So if you're not getting the feedback you need to ask for it, okay? When you deliver a project, don't be afraid to ask your client, if you own the company, how did I do? Did I meet your needs? Where could I have done better? Where could we have done better? If you're in the company, what is your company's review policy? Are you just going to wait until your review period comes up, or are you going to ask for feedback on smaller projects that you've done along the way? If you're in a situation where you just, you know that your company doesn't do a good job at this, but you want to grow as an individual, SWOT it. So what is a SWOT? Let's go to the next slide. So a SWOT is a form of self-assessment analysis that you can do on your own without your company's input. You take the time to list out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your threats. This takes some real time to be, honest about yourself and how you relate to where you are or where you want to be. And it should probably be done at least maybe, I would say quarterly, but if that's too ambitious, maybe, every 6 months, and at a minimum, one time a year. Because this is a kind of your individual work plan that will help you focus on where you want to get. I have a question, I'm just going to read it out. As a company owner, is it better to meet to get feedback, or is a poll better? Oh, I think it's better to do everything, directly, face to face, over the phone. Yes. So that's where I am on my 10 tips for self-improvement, for success. I try to focus on the construction industry, but I can be more specific if you have questions now. We have only 3 minutes though, so I'll be quiet. Can folks jump in and ask their questions, or is everyone muted?
I can unmute people if they want to send a message in the box.
Okay. If anyone, because we don't have much time, so feel free to ask your questions if you have any. This was originally supposed to be very interactive.
Got a question there in the chat box.
Okay. How do you suggest to promote your achievements to your clients? Newsletters, social networking, other means. So I can give examples on how we do it, and I think law firms are a good example because we're always interfacing with clients. I think a newsletter is a great idea, and maybe spend some time setting up one format where it's easy to update on either a monthly or every 2 month basis, just so that your name is always top of mind with your clients. I definitely think something that's regularly standard, matter of course, get into the habit of doing it. I have a newsletter and I'm going to keep it updated so that you can then use that newsletter on social networking, email, and it's not burdensome because you get into the habit of actually doing it. I hope that answers that question. We have a company policy to get testimonials, but the clients don't always provide. How do you chase without being annoying? Well, for that, sometimes it's just put someone on the spot. If you have a contact within the company and the client, call them up, 30 minutes, 40 minutes after you send whatever the deliverable is. And just say, is this what you were expecting? It can be informal. We don't always have to think about feedback as something very formal. It can simply be a phone call saying, did you like what I put together? Period. And that gives you general direction that what you're doing is appreciated. And I think that's the goal, right? We want to know that our work is being appreciated by those who we're working for or with. I've been told to be very strict with time, so we're seconds away from the end. So